Hello, hello. Welcome to September Hallway Track with the Angular team. This is probably, I have to say, one of my absolute, my favorite event. Hallway Track is just a super chill, no presentation. We're just hanging out. We used to hang out at the conferences, and it's really fun to just be able to hang out and get to know the Angular team, just hanging out in the hallway and talking about whatever. And so that's what we're doing. And we have Igor here today, which I'm very, very excited about because he's a lot of fun. He's super, super cool. I just want to do a really quick introduction or a really quick announcement, if that's okay, before we jump in, because, and I cannot keep a secret, but I have successfully kept a secret for a while because I was pretty excited about this and I wanted to share it all with you. So some of you might already know, we've been, Angular Nation's been growing, and I'm a teacher, a programmer, a mom. I have not had experience running a business. So, we've had some growing pains and scaling and everything. And so we haven't been bringing in a lot of money because almost everything that we do here is free. And we're running out of money. So I had started, and a couple of you know, because we talked about this a little bit in the Friday Social, that I had seriously started looking at putting up a paywall for events like this, because I can't pay for everything forever, and we're getting bigger and bigger and bigger, right? And so I was getting pretty close to that, but I didn't want to do that because, some of my favorite students, students starting out don't have a lot of money. So I was trying to stall, but we were getting really closer and closer. And I had kind of started warning people, like, we need to start charging for these live events until we were going to start it this month. And then we had a wonderful corporate sponsor come in and save the day, which is why this very event that all of you are in now is completely free. And I just want to take a minute to thank AG Grid. And I think we have Alan with the AG Grid team. And I just wanted to say thank you guys. And if you guys could just for a second, come off mute and thank them with me, because they are the reason this event right now is free. And more events like this.
Hello.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you, AG.
Thank you. Thank you.
Really appreciate it.
Thank you, AG. Great.
Right. So I'm still figuring out the business. I don't have any experience running a business, and I'm still figuring it out. We're doing a job fair soon. We have training, but there's so much that I want to do to help. And, we have a lot of scholarships. We have a lot of diversity. We have a lot of people outside the US and EU that we want to be able to help. And, not everybody has the money. So if you guys know anyone who's interested in corporate sponsorships, let me know, because I would really love to keep these events free pretty much forever. And I know I talked to the Angular team, and the Angular team would love for these events to be free so that they can hang out with all you guys and you don't have to pay. So that's my spiel. Thank you so much, AG Grid. We appreciate you. And I got to say, I've loved AG Grid for a long time before this. So now we just love you more. So that was my pitch. I just wanted to take the time to thank you guys and make that announcement and let everybody know that we're going to keep doing some stuff free. And with that, I'm just going to turn it over to Igor and say hello. How are you, Igor?
Good morning. I'm great. I'm happy to be here and be able to hang out with everybody. So thanks for having me. I'm really grateful. This is great. I love informal conversations, and this is one of the things that I miss the most about conferences these days. Like, these kind of informal conversations don't happen anymore. My best part of ngconf or Angular Connect was just hanging out in the hallways and just sitting somewhere, and people just come by and just ask questions or have a chat. And so thank you for providing this place to have that conversation.
You're welcome. I was shocked the first time that I met you. I met you and Brad and Mishko all on the same conference. And I was shocked because you guys were so nice. And I was so intimidated, and there were some, and I still considered myself not junior, but I didn't have any confidence back then. And you guys were so nice and so respectful in answering my questions. And then I went back to the office and I really had a lot more confidence. And I think it gave me less tolerance for other people acting like jerks, because I'm like, if these people that everyone admires can be so humble, why can't anyone be humble, And I love it. I just love the fact that you guys are so nice and that you'll just stand around talking to anybody. And I love the fact that you treat junior developers with as much respect as architects, I love that.
There is so much to be learned from people that are just getting started because they have a very new perspective, very fresh perspective. You know, many of us have been doing what we've been doing for many, many years, and we're kind of blind to things. But then when you talk to somebody who's just starting and they're like, this doesn't make sense. I'm like, what do you mean it doesn't make sense? It totally makes sense. And then you try to understand their perspective and you realize, actually, it doesn't make sense. We just got used to it. And those are the refreshing experiences and perspectives that I cherish.
I love it. Those conversations are so helpful. So many times along the way when I was learning, and I still do it now with Sonder, I get these really complicated problems and questions, and then I take it to Sonder and he just gives me a very simple answer. You do the same thing, Igor. You're really good at just finding simplicity in complexity. It's fun.
I like dealing with complexity, but I get that not everybody does. And for the most of my job, I value simplicity way over complexity.
Absolutely. It's not that easy to find the simplicity.
It's quite complex finding simplicity.
Okay, I want to tell everyone, some of you know us and some of you know that Sonder and I will talk to Igor all night. This is not hard for us. We'll talk all day long, but I really want you guys to get a chance to talk to him, and not just for you to get to know him, but for him to get to know you too, because that's part of the fun. So anybody have any questions, comments? Ronan, how you doing, Ronan?
Yeah, I was wondering, do you know regarding the modules in Angular? So they're going to be going away potentially. Is there any kind of news on that front?
Which side are you on? Do you like NG modules, or do you want to get rid of NG modules?
I use them to a certain extent. I don't use them for every component, but I've been considering it. Just because it kind of makes it easier to move stuff around and to see the dependencies. But I think I would like it if it was done with the services, when you had provided in root, it just made things much simpler. And I know some people were kind of scared about not having modules for services, but now that it's there, it's wonderful.
Right. So this is why we are very careful about how we talk about this stuff, because we understand that there are use cases where NG modules are critical and people like them for those use cases, but there are also use cases where NG modules get in the way and they make it confusing for people to get started with Angular, or for larger applications to scale. If you have lots of NG modules and you want to do lazy loading, things get very complicated. So one of the projects we've been working on for the past many months, at least 4 months, 5 months, is researching and designing a possible ways to make NG modules optional, so that you could use an Angular application without NG modules, if that's what you would like, and understand what it would take to do that and how to do it in a way that is compatible with the existing ecosystem. Because one thing that we absolutely do not want is fork the library ecosystem so that you can either use the module-less or the module-full, but not benefit from existing libraries. So the interrupt story is a critical part of this research and design. It actually has to be bidirectional interrupt, which makes it even more complicated, because you should be able to use this module-less components in modules, and you should also be able to use components that come from modules in module-less components. We have a proposal that
you want to use a component that is inside of a module, inside a module-less component. So you
might have to import it, because you might already have a bunch of components and you still need to be able to plug them into each other without refactoring everything.
Yeah.
So imagine that there is this possible hypothetical new world where you don't need NG modules to define a component. Once you start building a component, the first thing that you'll probably want is to reach for an existing library out there and use it in your template. Whether it's Material or Bootstrap or whatever you have, AG Grid, you want to use those in your template. Now, it will be a shame if we told you, okay, you have to wait until all of these libraries upgrade to the module-less world, and then you can use them. that's just not acceptable. So it's important that you are able to use existing libraries, existing components in this new way of building components. Does it make sense?
And you've solved it, almost?
We have a design that we think works. We are doing the finishing touches on the internal discussions and preparation for RFC. And I do expect that within the next week or two, you'll see a public RFC that you'll be able to comment, and we have some demos, and you'll be able to play with it. I wish we already were further along and I could show you stuff, but I don't want to preempt the internal discussions that are still ongoing. I don't want to make some of my team members feel left out of that. So
I have a link that I could put in the chat because Alex Rickabaugh came with just with a like spike of like a hypothetical discussion, and there was a recording there. That was a month ago. That's like still not a commitment of exactly what the code would look like. But I just want you to know, and I think I speak for all of us, Igor, when I say, if you guys ever want to come and do a spike with us and talk about like something that's not finalized yet, we're totally cool with it. We love it. We love to like see something that hasn't come out yet. We feel very special.
Once the RFC is out, we would love to come to Angular Nation and just do like a public discussion with whoever wants to come and hang out and, you know, show some demos and walk people over the design and discuss any kind of thoughts or opinions or ideas, questions. Yeah,
we love it. And they'll be free thanks to AG-Grid. Hey, Aditya has a really good question, Igor.
Yes.
I don't know if you're allowed to, because you probably can't tell us how, but you tweeted about it.
Okay, the tweet. I didn't realize that it was so. It was going to generate so much controversy when I tweeted it. I was just genuinely proud of what we accomplished, and I was just so proud of the team. And I hope I didn't set the wrong expectations. So I can talk a little bit about it. A lot of the just for the context for those people that are not familiar, a couple 2 weeks ago or so, I tweeted that the Angular team has accomplished this huge engineering feat, and I'm just incredibly proud of everybody on the team. And everybody was like, "What happened? What happened? What have you done?" And I was like, "Well, we kind of made the whole Google much more productive, like thousands, if not tens of thousands of engineers at Google, significantly more productive." And people are like, "Okay, tell us more. Is this coming to Angular? Like, when are we going to start benefiting from this?" What actually happened was we finished a major milestone of rolling out Ivy in Google 3. So most of the Angular community has been benefiting from Ivy for a long time. Since version 9, the external ecosystem is mostly on Ivy. In version 13, that is going to go out in November, we will complete the migration to Ivy for libraries and for the entire external ecosystem. There's going to be no more Vue Engine anywhere. But internally, in the meantime, this is something that you haven't seen. We've been also working on transitioning about 2,500 internal applications at Google onto Ivy. And the contract we have internally is slightly different than, well, quite different than the contract we have with the external users, external developers. Our team is actually in charge of all the infrastructure upgrades. So while the external world, we published version 9, we made it extremely easy for you to jump on version 9 and start using Ivy. We published some guides. If you run into problems, here's how to debug. You will need to probably tweak some code, but it's on you to do that. Internally at Google, it's us doing the work, and not only that it's us, but there's only one version of Angular that the entire Google uses. So there's 2,500 applications that use one version of Angular, and we were trying to get them from Vue Engine to Ivy, and it's been quite a journey. It's technically complex. I don't want to go into all the details, and it probably deserves a separate conference talk on how we've done it. But the key point is that about 2 weeks ago. We finished a major milestone. There's still small handful of applications that we still need to finish, but everybody who matters, and like 95+% of applications are on Ivy by now. And with that, one of the great things we see at Google is just the accumulative benefit that Ivy provided to Google. Like we see 30% decrease in critical build time, critical path build time. So developers are essentially 30% more productive. In some of the applications, we've seen a drop of, well, in most of the applications, on average, we see about 30% reduction in payload size. And that in some of the biggest ones, this is also what I mentioned in one of the tweets, is we actually shaved off 1 gigabyte of JavaScript from one particular application. And everybody's like, what? 1 gigabyte of JavaScript? That's crazy. Well, it's not, because it's a ginormous application. It's very modularized. There's a lot of lazy loading, so it's not like we're trying to pull gigabytes of JavaScript into the browser at a time. But it's also an application that is localized into 56 or more languages. So you actually have that many copies of that application. So there's a lot of automated duplication of the code, and it's the accumulation of this through localization, through all the experiments and all of these variants of the application that add up to several gigabytes. And we actually shaved off 1 gigabyte of JavaScript from that particular application. So the good thing about this is that now people will be like, well, but how are we going to benefit, outside of Google? And I want to make it clear that the external community benefits from this so much, because with this milestone, we can now finally focus on building on top of Ivy. And this is what we've been talking about for years. That Ivy is not the end station. That's just an enabler for many other things that will build on top of Ivy. And we would not be able to deliver on these things if Google was not completely on Ivy. So it took us a while, but Google is now on Ivy. We are in the process of deleting View Engine completely, which then means that we can start making changes that are incompatible with View Engine that previously wouldn't be able to, because you would have to basically implement many things twice, once for View Engine and once for Ivy, and that would be infeasible. So what you'll see, and what we already discussed, the optional engine modules, like that would not be possible if we had both Ivy and View Engine around, because it would be too much work. But now that View Engine is almost gone, we can start focusing on these kind of initiatives and build on top of Ivy. There are other proposals that are floating around how to speed up build system using parallel compilation and other. There are so many other things that are going on in the background that are only possible because we've reached this milestone. So I don't want the community to be disappointed that, oh, we're not going to benefit from this. Like the Angular team has spent so much time on this Google stuff, we don't care. You should care, because without this milestone, we would not be able to do other great things that everybody will benefit from.
So many exciting things happening. Okay, I have a question, and this might be a difficult question, Igor, because I know there are a lot of really cool people on the Angular team, but is there anybody specific for this specific milestone that you want to give a shout out to? Because we know like Alex Rickabaugh, we know Peter Bacon-Darwin, we love them, but we don't know all the people on the Angular team. So is there anybody in particular that you think was just really an amazing, this engineering feat? Any faces come to mind when you think about this engineering feat?
It's so hard, because whenever you single out one person, then other people feel left out. Like this truly has been a team effort. And somebody, Andrew Kirshner, he's actually a unsung hero on the Angular team. He described this as a multi-generational effort, getting Ivy into Google 3, because so many people have worked on this that it wasn't like one group of people, but actually several generations of people that worked on the project to bring it to completion. So singling out the single person, it would be just unfair.
It was. I remember there was a while when I was reaching out to Steve and asking questions, and every time I asked him something, he said, "The whole team's working on Ivy. Back off." But then finally, it came out, and it was all worth it. It's beautiful.
Yeah.
Anybody got more questions? Kai.
Let's talk about the future of ngDeep. It's deprecated since forever. Like
Oh,
I don't know, since Angular 2, right?
I'm
And,
sorry, Igor. That's a good question. I love that question.
And I was wondering, Junior or any developer in our company always asks me, "Isn't it deprecated? Why do we still use it?" And I say, I don't have a good alternative to it. It solves the problem we have, but there's no alternative to it. And maybe there is, because we have a talk on Angular Nation later this week, I guess, about ngDeep.
About ngDeep.
Yeah, and
it's a difficult.
Yeah, it's super difficult. I know. That's why I asked you.
Well, good. I'll try. So let me preface this that I actually don't know what talk is coming up. So maybe somebody has.
It's one of our channel hosts. It's not anyone speaking for the Angular team. It's just like about ngDeep and like what you could do instead and that kind of thing. It's actually Ankita, who we love, and I'm very excited about it. But it's not an official.
Cool. So I can give you informal answer, and that is we struggle with ngDeep because we see it as something that breaks encapsulation of components, but at the same time it's very much necessary, as you described. Like there are use cases when it's necessary, and we don't have an alternative solution. We are thinking of alternative solutions, but we don't want to build something super custom that is Angular specific. One of the things that we've been looking at have been custom variables, CSS custom variables, that could be used to tackle many of the use cases where ngDeep is used by exposing APIs that you could customize. It would give you less flexibility to customize the components, but it would build a more explicit API between the customization points of component and the external world. So I don't know if this is something that you considered and would work for you, but that is something that we've been thinking about. There might be use cases that are still not supported in this way. But one thing that was blocking us from actually acting on this was Ie11 support. Ie11 doesn't support custom variables, custom properties. So we had to first deprecate Ie11 so that we can get unstuck and have capabilities in the browser that would actually allow us to evolve this further. So I don't have a solid answer for you about when this is going to be fully resolved, but I feel like now that Ie11 is going away, V13 is the first version that doesn't support Ie11, we have more capabilities in the browser to actually tackle this problem.
And then, sorry, Bonnie.
I was just going to say, Ankita is the one that we were just talking about. She's the one that's doing the talk next week, and she just appeared. And I don't know if someone told her or if she just knew that we were here talking about her, but it was like magic. Yeah, we were because he was asking about ngDeep, Ankita. Go ahead, Kai. Yeah. Or go ahead, Ankita. Sorry, whoever, anybody. No, Kai was asking a question for you, and it was a perfect question, and then you appeared, and it was great.
What was the question?
He was asking Igor about ngDeep.
Yeah.
And Igor was squirming because it's not an easy answer. It's like but we were talking about CSS variables possibly.
And I wanted to add to this that this is a perfectly good solution to this problem. If the library you are consuming actually provides this public API via custom properties. So if it is not, and we actually wrap our framework around an existing UI framework that does not provide any CSS variables, and I think Angular Material does doesn't provide custom properties as well. Not yet. It's not yet. I know the issue.
Ie11.
Yeah. So it's kind of. It's a good solution, but only if everyone jumps in and does it the right way. And as soon as ngDeep is gone, the only thing you can do is go to your global style SCSS or disable view encapsulation.
Yeah,
Well, this is why it's good if we're all able to collaborate and discuss.
Right.
And Kita, real quick, can you tell us just real quick? Don't tell us all of it, but just tell us like the description of your talk, because I didn't know off the top of my head, but I know you will, because I know you're talking about NTD.
Right. So like I was just kind of talking about the way that we have found to avoid using NGD, which is either to use host context. So when you're trying to style your child component, when you instead of doing NGD in a parent component, you use host context in your child component and put your styles in that, or you use global styles instead of using view encapsulation. And the way that you use global styles is the other thing that I was going to talk about, is with like specific band naming convention or a pattern that works for you, and then just having it be global in the sense that it can be used across the libraries, across components, but also with so that makes sense, like it's intuitive. That was the TLDR of my talk.
Sounds good.
It sounds like it fits right in with because isn't that what you said, Igor? Is y'all are talking about using variables to avoid NG-deep, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So the Angular team doesn't officially have an official answer yet, because this is not an official conversation, but Ankita, we're looking forward to your talk.
Thank you.
And I do suspect
And
sorry.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say that I do suspect that once we burn down through some of the stuff that's going on now, NG-deep will pop up, and there's going to be some research and RFC coming out related to NG-deep. So Kai and others, you will have an opportunity to weigh in and help us understand what are the current use cases and how the solutions that we are thinking of would or would not address your needs.
I mean, the most that I see being used, if I can just tell you that, is for Angular material components when you want them to not have as much padding as they have, or you want to increase the width of something of them. So the only way that it looks like we can style them is using NG-deep. And so that was the other thing that I was saying, that you probably always use global styles. It's just a different architectural pattern instead of using NG-deep to use global styles just for having a variation in your design system like that. You know, we have a few raised hands. I don't know if that's for me.
Sonder.
Yeah, I can add to the whole NG-deep thing is NG-deep is mostly deprecated because the web components standard also deprecated the deep thing, which made it very hard for Angular to still carry it.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just following the standards. NG-deep is deprecated by the web standards, so don't use it. Use indeed custom properties. This is the way forward. But indeed, if you have to deal with a legacy library that still uses NG material, yeah, the thing is, it will become better once Internet Explorer support is fully dropped, which is pretty soon anyway. So,
Chris, do you have a question? Sorry.
Yeah, it was a similar vein, really. It was more on the styling with content projection. When you're projecting in components, you then have to style on that parent rather than in the child. Is that right, or am I missing something there? So, for example, I think if you were to have, so rather than using a file accessor for something, you'd wrap a input so you can have that projected into the component. But then styling that input, you couldn't necessarily do that from your wrapped component.
Wouldn't you do that
This
component that you are injecting into? Shouldn't those styles be there because you're actually injecting that piece of HTML into there? So you will have to do your styling there, not on the.
and you get to decide on the encapsulation.
Yeah, so I guess you kind of, you don't want to keep as a general rule that your encapsulation is emulated, I guess, in most cases. rather than exposing it out so that your style sheet kind of like threads. Maybe I'm not making myself.
I use them both in different situations. I think they're both valid. But the thing is, I mean, I just came from architect training, so I would just say, like, it just needs to be a conscious decision. When you're thinking about, do I want the CSS from this component to leak out to the rest of the page? It shouldn't be an accident. It should either be, yes, I want that, or no, I don't want that. And Angular lets you decide with the encapsulation. But generally, you don't want it leaking. You don't want, like, right? Because by default, it will just affect that one component. And usually I've learned, if you look at what the Angular team default to, they're like trying to tell you the right answer in almost every situation. So it's like, this is the one you should normally use. So the default is generally the best. But there have been situations where, specifically what you were talking about, I want the other ones I want this to leak out to the rest. And so then I would change the encapsulation.
Yeah, I guess I'm thinking more if you compare it to web components where you've got slots, and you can use the slotted API for styling CSS, which kind of you can emulate by using the ng deep. And then
what do you say, Sonder?
No, slots are basically like content projection. And if you do that in Angular, you can just tell it where you inject the content. So you don't need ng deep for that. You don't need to style the thing you're injecting inside the component you are injecting it into. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think that makes sense. But I guess my problem is I want to style it from the component I'm injecting it into. So you're enforcing a certain styling.
There are actually two kinds of styling. You have like functional styling, which is where it comes and the size, and you have like theme styling, which is the font, the padding, the colors. If you split out those two, you can get away with most of those things you want to do by just styling them from within your component. But I need to know a little bit more for your use case to give like a complete advice on this thing.
I guess
I can also tell you. Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to kind of compare it back to the web component standard where they have exposed this kind of slotted idea. And there is use cases for it.
There are use cases for it, sure.
So Chris, what you do is you have ng content in your template, and then you style that using ng deep to style the things that is being projected through that ng content.
Yeah.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Interesting.
Trying to enforce, a kind of style guide from the component, because the consumer might not necessarily know how to style for that component.
I just want to say that I'm running the DOM course right now, and we talk a lot about content projection, and we have a lot of examples. And I don't want to be cheesy, but I just want to say what y'all are talking about is like there are code samples there specifically. So I just want to say, and Sonder helped me with the code samples, and Alex Rickabaugh helped me with the code samples, and it's really cool. And it's exactly what you're talking about. So I'm just saying.
Yeah, I think the CSS variables, I hadn't quite particularly thought about that. I mean, we have to support Angular, we have to support IE partly, although that is disappearing as well where I work, so that's fine. I'm
so sorry for you.
It's all right. It's disappearing soon, which is great because we're wanting to develop some web component stuff as well, which thankfully can be done now with IE disappearing.
If you can ever get the those CSS variables, I really think it's good because it's kind of like, a standard feature. Like if your client hasn't asked you yet for dynamic templates, just assume someday they're going to, right? They want to have dark mode, and it's like they tell you they don't care about responsiveness, and then a year later they tell you they do, and you got just assume that someday they're going to ask you for dynamic dark mode templates, and assume now.
Everyone loves dark mode, right?
Yeah. It's going to be a standard feature if it's not already. So and this is where with the CSS variables, because I'm probably not the only one who built it all. And then the client said, oh, now we want it to, now we want dynamic templates. And actually I didn't do it, somebody else did it, but we had the RGB code in every single child component. And it's just not, you don't have to live like that.
For the record, no, everyone does not like dark mode.
Good.
And I personally believe that using dark mode in presentations is a offense punishable by death, but I'm in the minority on that.
Wow. Strong opinion.
Yeah, but the thing about dark mode is that it's easier on your eyes. You see, because when you have a white screen, that hurts your eyes because it's so much light going in through the retina, right?
Agreed, but not for presentations.
Well,
Yeah.
I would say that depends where you're presenting on. If you have a projection screen, dark mode is hell. If you're presenting from a television or some kind of screen that emits light, it doesn't really matter.
Right.
I'm loving this because Edward, Sonder, and Rob are maybe some of the most opinionated, and I'm just watching because you guys can argue about any topic. Yeah, I love it.
May I interrupt?
Funny, he started it.
Hey, Igor, go
I don't
ahead.
know
Yeah.
where he is there.
Yeah.
I just want to take a moment and just raise a cup of tea to Ie11. You know, it's been a good ride, and it's
Are
been
you
a
supposed
journey.
to pour one out?
Yeah.
I think it's time for Tombstone now.
No, I'm glad that Ie11 is going away. I think it's going to be a big enabler for many of us to do great things and simplify code bases and have new capabilities and features. So it's awesome.
I remember the first time I ever joined a team because I was, teaching myself web development, and I joined a team and I actually got a job with other developers. And I remember the first day that somebody said something and I found out that I wasn't the only one struggling with IE, because I was really having a lot of problems with Internet Explorer, and I didn't know that all developers feel like that. And I just felt like very happy. It was like, oh, I'm part of a team. It was great.
I still do have a question.
Yeah, run.
I really like the idea of disabling the type checking. Can you tell us a little bit more around that?
Sure. How about we give a chance to Ronan? He's had his hand up for quite some time.
Go ahead, Ronan.
And we'll come back to you, Sander.
Sonder, put your hand up so we won't forget you. And then anyone else comes behind Sonder.
Yeah, so my question is, I've been getting into the monorepo stuff using the NX tooling recently. And one thing I really like about it is that it has really good defaults and it's really opinionated, right? It's using stuff that developers really love. And for instance, like, I think they've been using ESLint for a long time, where Angular was still on TSLint even when it was deprecated, using Cypress instead of Protractor, even though Protractor wasn't popular at all for a long time, using Jest instead of Karma. And that's kind of one half of it. So I was wondering, like, Angular is supposed to be opinionated and have great defaults. So I'm wondering, like, I would nearly use NX's monorepo tools even without the monorepo, just because it gives you that great tooling. And on top of that, they make like creating automation really easy, for doing their schematics and builders. What they call a generator and executor, but they give you an executor to create, or they give you a schematic so you can create your own schematics, for setting up stuff like Cypress and Storybook, and even for migrating Protractor to Cypress. So there's just so much amazing tooling. I'm wondering, do Angular have any goals of kind of trying to look at what they're doing, and can we pull that into Angular?
So we're doing some of it already. The hard thing is that we're trying to see what is happening at Google and what developers at Google need, as well as what the external open source community is doing, and kind of find a common ground. There are solutions, like you mentioned ESLint. I think ESLint is a great tool, but I don't think it's better than TSLint. And if I could, we would be using TSLint going forward. The problem is that it's no longer supported, and eventually it's just going to stop working. So with ESLint and TSLint in particular, it was a hard decision because we felt like we were helping people to migrate to a solution that was not as strong, not as performant, not as not as small when it comes to download size as the solution we already had. So that was a tough one. You mentioned Jest and Cypress, and that comes down to trade-offs. Sometimes there are often use cases where, for example, with Cypress, where the developer productivity and the developer experience is amazing. I love it. But there are use cases that you just can't test with Cypress because of the approach they took to testing. And we have many of the customers, existing customers, that depend on these kind of capabilities. So we're trying to figure out how to offer good developer experience and how to stay up to date, but also not leave people that critically depend on existing capabilities that we offer behind. And this is where you see us more and more make it easy to bring Cypress to Angular projects. So it's not there by default, but it's very easy to bring it in. The same with ESLint. If you want ESLint, it's very easy to bring it in. We actually worked with the ESLint community quite a bit and made the migration story quite smooth. So I would love Angular to be even more opinionated and more modern, but doing that without leaving existing customers behind is hard. So you will probably see us move a little more slowly and a little more carefully, but we will always give you options to be adventurous and use the coolest and the most modern thing. We actually just recently had a discussion about vanilla extract. It's one of the projects on my radar. We had a discussion with Mark here at Angular Nation. I would love to support vanilla extract in Angular and make it easy to use it. This will require a little bit of work, but that's something that I think is important for us to do, to stay up to date and give developers options.
Yeah, like even if you're creating a project, I don't know if you could ask for more options, or maybe you could give it a flag like, I want you to ask me all the options, if you don't want all the users to get it.
Yeah.
And then if there was if you provided schematics where you could easily add it in later, or switch it later. I know some of those exist in NX, so there's some examples there, but at the moment, as I said, you can only use NX to get that functionality.
Right. It is hard because the more options you give to developers, the more overwhelming it gets to even get started. Because as a new developer, imagine that you're just getting started and now somebody asks you, do you want to use vanilla extract and Jest and Cypress in your project? And you're like, I don't know what these things are. I don't know how to make a decision. So there's a cost to every option, and that's why there are only so many things we offer, give you as a decision point when you're getting started, but we definitely make it easy to add things after the fact if that's what you want.
Okay, thanks.
Sander, you're muted.
I just asked my question, but I will repeat it. Can you explain a little bit more about the optional type checking you are proposing in a PR?
Yeah, I'll keep it brief because we already discussed this previously, but I think that TypeScript is great. It's really powerful. It helps you find bugs, but I don't want TypeScript to be between me and seeing results of my work, whether it's getting feedback from unit tests or seeing my web development web server to refresh. So one of the proposals that we have on GitHub is to make type checking not optional, but asynchronous, so that we are able to refresh the dev server or run unit tests before we actually get the results from type checking. So type checking still happens, it just happens in parallel with the rest of the build pipeline, which allows us to get to the feedback much sooner. And you still get the benefits of type checking because you will get the errors or warnings either in your IDE or in the terminal. We can also inject it into the dev server, so it's not like you won't see those issues, but it won't stop you from seeing the results. And this is especially important if you're just exploring and prototyping, where often there will be type checking issues in your code base temporarily, and that's okay because you're just exploring things and want to see if the direction you want to go down is the right one.
Thank you, Iris. I think it's a good thing to iterate on this because some people are afraid it will go away completely, which is a bad idea. But
right. No. This is not about removing type checking. This is about making it asynchronous. Chris.
Yeah, a little change of tack. Thinking about federated modules and what kind of Angular's, I won't say official, but your thoughts on how that's going to work with Angular ecosystem, and particularly packages like the router and things like that.
All the hard questions.
I'm just trying to think how controversial I want to be today.
Highly controversial.
Highly.
Sparks conversation.
We can always edit the video. We're not live streaming, Igor.
I think module federation as we know it today is not going to fly, or it's going to fly only in very limited use cases, for two reasons. One reason is that it forces you to load too much JavaScript up front in the critical path, because in order to do module federation, you need to disable tree shaking and many of the optimizations, because you just don't know what parts of the federation or what parts of the shared library will be used by different parts of the federation. So it means you have to de-optimize things, and not only de-optimize, you are actually forced to eagerly load JavaScript up front. And this is going to fly only in internal enterprise applications, but not in anything external facing or anything that you would consume from mobile device. So while there are use cases, those use cases are limited to very specific scenarios. The other problem I see with module federations is that there's a version skew issue. In Angular, when we generate code, we generate these calls into instructions, which is the IV API that is internal. And these instruction APIs, they can change from one patch version to another. This is why we're still iterating on them. We're making them better. We're making them faster. And they are not stable API. So if you compile code with one patch version of Angular and deploy it as your shell of the federation, and then you have a leaf in your federation that you compile with different patch version of Angular, but these two parts share the same runtime, there is no guarantee that things will work in production. And you will learn about it the hard way when things stop working. So in the last several months or even quarters, there were very few changes to the instruction API, but that's not how it's going to be. And I think, especially as we work on optional engine modules, we will touch the instruction APIs, and you will see changes to them, which will make the whole the current illusion that module federation works. It will burst the illusion. You will see the cracks in the design. So I think the whole micro frontend area, there's a very clear and strong need and desire to solve and decouple things. I think the problem is real. I'm dissatisfied with the current solutions that are on the table, and this is something that we're actively researching and seeing, like, can we do better than what's currently out there?
Yeah, I guess for just on your 2 points there. So I work in a large enterprise, so we're wanting to decouple and kind of do domain-driven development to not necessarily think about time to first byte and those metrics, more about our release cycle and all the risk management that goes around with releasing very large applications. So for us, that federated module kind of fits that niche very well. But obviously,
it's the second problem that will get you.
Yeah, but that's where NX. Sorry, just quickly, just where NX comes in quite nicely with the monorepo is that we share packages across all our domains, so that everything is similar, I guess, to Google. There, everything is running in the same version of Angular, and
that helps. It makes the problem less acute, but you then still need to coordinate releases, which goes exactly in the opposite direction, because the whole thing with micro frontends and this kind of approaches is to have independent releases.
Yes.
So your approach, if you do it right, it can work, but you have to be extremely careful, and there will be a dance around upgrading the version of Angular that you need to go through.
So I guess just to summarize your point there, Angular's not particularly focusing on federated modules. Like, you're aware of it and researching it, but not.
We are actively researching the area. We don't know what the solution will be yet.
Yeah.
I can tell you something that I don't even know if Igor knows yet, because I just talked to Minko about this today. I don't know when the last time you talked to Minko was, Igor, but because I invited Minko last month or the month before, he was going to come and talk about, because they were asking large companies, like they want to talk to large companies, right, about this microfinance thing. And I said, Minko, can you come and do a thing on Angular Nation? And he said, yes. We scheduled it. We put it on the calendar. And I said, I will send it to you. I put it on the calendar and I forgot to send it to Minko. And then everybody showed up but Minko. And then I called Minko, but he was sick that day. Anyway, it was totally my fault. But the point is, Minko gave us another chance. And I'm sorry to tell you that whole story, but he's coming back. I don't know exactly the date. I want to say tentatively 2 weeks from today, maybe, that Minko's going to come back. Chris, you're going to want to be for this conversation. Ronan, you're probably going to want to be in this conversation, because he's coming specifically to talk about the micro front end situation, because he's been talking to a bunch of companies, and then he's going to talk to us about this. So it's going to be cool.
Be super interesting.
Igor, you're invited. Igor, you're invited for everything, obviously. But if you have time, you're also obviously welcome to join.
Are you saying that I can sit with you?
Yes, absolutely. I would love to stay here all day, and I know everybody has work to do, so we should probably think about wrapping it up, because we're at the top of the hour. We have to respect Igor's time. Does anybody have any last minute final thoughts that they want to throw out? Orson. Hello, Orson. I can't hear you, my friend. The suspense is killing me. Orson, tell us your thoughts.
About the question in the chat, maybe? He asked a question in the chat.
Oh, there we go. Yeah, thank you, Kai. What are the main challenges with NG modules that has led to the decision to make it optional? Well, that's not a quick last minute. Well, yeah, Igor, I'm sure you can give us
there are many, but the one that you care about is that it's often an unnecessary complexity. It's a level of abstraction that sometimes get between you and the code that doesn't need to be there.
Love it. Okay, so I actually don't have confirmation from Minko yet on the date. I do have confirmation that he's coming sometime in the next couple of weeks. I just don't have confirmation on the date yet, so don't hold me on that. But he will be here soon, and we'll talk about that. And we're just gonna have way more conversation. Igor, basically, anytime you want to come and talk to these people, you let me know. I'll put it on the calendar, because we love this. Oh yes, Sarah Drett. We're excited about Sarah. Is there any way that, because I'm sure Sarah's busy, is there any way that we could get Sarah to stop by? Can you just tell her that we love her and we're very excited?
I'll tell her.
Yeah.
I cannot make promises, but I can put in the word.
Tell her that we're excited. Tell her that we very much think this was somebody's very good decision. Whoever decided to hire her, good job. We love her. And if she ever wants to just come and hang out with us,
Okay.
We'll be fun.
Sounds good.
Okay, we're at the top of the hour. Igor, do you have any final thoughts for us?
No, just thank you for coming and hanging out with us. Please just keep the conversation going. Let us know what works for you, what doesn't, so that we can keep on improving Angular. Thanks for sitting with us.
Thank you. All right, everybody come off mute. You know the drill. Everybody, I'm going to stop the recording. Come off mute, say goodbye, say thank you to Igor, and we'll see you all soon.
Thank you.
Igor.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
you.
Pleasure.
Next time.
Thank you.
Bye, everybody. We'll see y'all soon. Don't forget, tomorrow night's the Friday Social. Tomorrow afternoon is Angular Americas with Jeff Welpley and Kyler and Natty, and it's super fun. And then we'll have the Friday Social tomorrow. So we'll see y'all soon. Thanks again, Igor. Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Cheers.
Bye.